They thought they were just doing their jobs. They had no idea the woman they confronted would soon decide theirs. On an ordinary day in Fort Collins, Colorado, the park was buzzing. Families filled the lawns, joggers passed with earbuds in, and birds sang above a quiet pond. There, Camille, an accomplished attorney, was taking a rare break, lost in a hardcover book she'd barely had time to touch in weeks. Then the calm cracked. Tires screeched. A patrol car stopped cold. 2 officers stepped out, faces set in stone, scanning until they zeroed in on Camille. One of them called out, tone already laced with suspicion. "Ma'am, can we talk?" She looked up, measured and calm. "Sure," she replied. The second officer cut in fast. "We got a report about suspicious behavior. Can you explain why you're here?" She blinked. "I'm reading," she said flatly, holding up her book like it was evidence. It wasn't enough. "Can we see ID?" asked the first. Her heartbeat kicked up a gear, but her voice stayed steady. "Why?" she asked. "Routine," came the vague reply. But nothing about this was routine, not then, and not when they saw her again years later, in court robes. Despite the officer's cool delivery, the crowd could feel something was off. Murmurs stirred like wind through dry leaves. A few curious stares mixed with side eyes of discomfort. Sensing the shift, Camille let out a breath and reached into her bag. She pulled out her wallet and handed over her ID. One cop grabbed it like he was holding a smoking gun. "Camille Johnson," he said, tone dripping sarcasm. "Mind telling us what you're doing here, Ms. Johnson?" Camille straightened her back. "I live here. I'm at the park. Is that not allowed?" The officer's jaw clenched. "We'll see." He handed back her ID, but made no move to leave. Instead, the grilling continued. "That book yours, or just for show?" One smirked. "You here alone, or got someone meeting you?" The other asked, hand hovering way too close to his belt. Camille had stood her ground in courtrooms packed with pressure, but this was different. This wasn't law. This was power games in uniform. She kept her cool. "Unless I'm being charged, I won't answer anything else." That hit a nerve. The lead officer stepped forward. "Don't get cute with us." "I know my rights," she shot back, steady as ever. "And reading in a public park isn't a crime." But rights didn't matter now. The officer reached for her wrist. "You're resisting," he barked, though she hadn't even flinched. "What are you doing?" she gasped. The crowd reacted. Phones came out. People shouted. "Stop resisting!" the officer yelled, his voice now loud enough to echo. Cold cuffs locked onto her wrists. Her pride burned hotter than the sun. As they dragged her toward the squad car, Camille locked eyes with a woman filming everything, proof the truth was watching. Their eyes locked for a split second, Camille and the bystander recording. No words needed. The plea was silent. Don't let them erase this. Then came the sharp thunk of the cruiser door closing. That sound would stay with her. This wasn't closure. It was chapter 1. Cramped in the back of the patrol car, Camille's thoughts spun. Years spent defending the system's victims, now suddenly counted among them. The irony would have been laughable if it hadn't hurt so much. The ride was quiet, suffocating. Only the police radio buzzed, indifferent and endless. She turned her head toward the window. Her own reflection stared back, fractured by motion. The metal on her wrists was too tight, leaving angry marks. At the station, things escalated. The process was invasive. Every step designed to peel her identity down to a booking number. A camera flashed. A cell door slammed. "Enjoy your stay," said the officer, a smirk playing at his lips. She sat alone on a metal bench, trying to make sense of the spiral. The park, the book, the cuffs, the cause. Obvious, bitter, prejudice dressed as procedure. Hours ticked by before anyone returned. A young cop appeared, clipboard in hand. "You're being charged with resisting arrest and obstruction." Camille raised her eyes. "Based on what?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. "You can sort that out in court." He didn't wait for a reply, just walked away. She exhaled slowly. The accusations were weak, but the path to justice? That's always the hard part. She stepped out into the night like a scene out of a Prison Break movie. The air slapped her face, sharp, cold, free. A far cry from the fluorescent hell she'd just escaped. There, at the curb, was Marissa, part friend, part guardian angel. "Camille," she cried, racing over, eyes brimming with emotion. "Are you okay?" Camille managed a nod, though her body quivered like a lie detector on red alert. "I'm fine," she muttered. But fine was a ghost of a word. On the drive, the silence sat between them like a third passenger. Marissa kept peeking at her, waiting for a breakdown, a rant, anything. Finally, Camille's voice cut through like glass. "I'm not walking away from this. Not this time." Marissa's fingers clenched the wheel. "What are you planning?" Camille didn't blink. "I've got the knowledge, the fire, and every damn receipt I need. I'm going to war." That night, her kitchen became a war room. Legal pads sprawled like blueprints for a battle. Law books cracked open like grenades. Her hands trembled, not in fear, but with the weight of purpose. By the end of the week, Camille had drafted a civil rights lawsuit. Her target? The officers and the entire department. Then came the internet storm. The arrest footage? Viral. The outrage? Real. Messages flooded in. Victims, allies, strangers. Stories poured into her inbox like fuel to the fire. Camille wasn't alone anymore. She was the face of a cause. And just when she thought she had the fight mapped out, justice threw a curveball. Her firm hesitated, scared her battle might stain their pristine brand. But Camille stood tall. "This isn't just about me," she told them. "It's bigger. It's about drawing the line." And that line, it had just been lit. She stepped out into the night like a scene out of a Prison Break movie. The air slapped her face, sharp, cold, free. A far cry from the fluorescent hell she'd just escaped. There at the curb was Marissa, part friend, part guardian angel. "Camille!" she cried, racing over, eyes brimming with emotion. "Are you okay?" Camille managed a nod, though her body quivered like a lie detector on red alert. "I'm fine," she muttered. But fine was a ghost of a word. On the drive, the silence sat between them like a third passenger. Marissa kept peeking at her, waiting for a breakdown, a rant, anything. Finally, Camille's voice cut through like glass. "I'm not walking away from this. Not this time." Marissa's fingers clenched the wheel. "What are you planning?" Camille didn't blink. "I've got the knowledge, the fire, and every damn receipt I need. I'm going to war." That night, her kitchen became a war room. Legal pads sprawled like blueprints for a battle. Law books cracked open like grenades. Her hands trembled, not in fear, but with the weight of purpose. By the end of the week, Camille had drafted a civil rights lawsuit. Her target? The officers and the entire department. Then came the internet storm. The arrest footage? Viral. The outrage? Real. Messages flooded in. Victims, allies, strangers. Stories poured into her inbox like fuel to the fire. Camille wasn't alone anymore. She was the face of a cause. And just when she thought she had the fight mapped out, justice threw a curveball. Her firm hesitated, scared her battle might stain their pristine brand. But Camille stood tall. "This isn't just about me," she told them. "It's bigger. It's about drawing the line." And that line, it had just been lit. The video of Camille, calm in the chaos, forcibly led away by police officers, exploded across social media. It quickly morphed into a symbol of quiet defiance against a relentless machine. Requests for interviews poured in, but Camille declined everyone. She had a singular mission: to build a case that not only held the officers accountable, but peeled back the layers of a broken system. When the camera stopped rolling and the world went quiet, the gravity of what happened pressed in. She replayed the arrest, the dismissive tone, the unforgiving handcuffs, the crowd's hushed murmurs. The thought that things could have spiraled even further churned in her stomach, but also fueled a relentless drive. One evening, as Camille lost herself in legal research, Marissa arrived with takeout. Camille barely looked up. "You've been at this for hours," Marissa said gently. "I don't have a choice," Camille replied, unwavering. Marissa sat, eyes searching. "This is bigger than a courtroom fight now. People are watching." Camille met her gaze, voice steady. "I know, and I can't afford to lose." Her preparation was surgical, studying precedents, assembling a team that shared her vision of justice. But Camille's battle was more than legal. It was a community calling for change. She'd been to town halls, absorbed stories from the broken and betrayed, even spoke at a college on accountability, a rare flicker in the dark. One slow afternoon, after a meeting, a stranger stepped from the shadows. "Miss Johnson?" Her voice cracked like old leather. "Thank you for standing up to them, for all of us." Camille's throat clenched tight. She gave a small, hard smile. "Just doing what I must." The weight of community support was a double-edged blade, fuel and burden all at once. Then the call came. The officers she sued filed a motion to dismiss. An old trick, a delaying game. But what her lawyer said next chilled her. "Camille, you've been assigned judge on one of their cases next month." The irony was cold, biting. Weeks of preparing to challenge them, and now, fate demanded impartiality from her. Could she hold the scales steady? She thought of the injustice, the eyes watching her. This was no accident. It was a test, maybe the biggest one. The courtroom hummed low as people took their seats. The case was no headline. A routine misconduct hearing. 2 officers charged with excessive force in some unrelated mess. Carter and Daniels sat, uniforms like shields, voices low, expressions dull. Another day, another hurdle. Then the judge's door swung open. The courtroom fell into a tense hush as Camille approached the bench, her black robe flowing like a symbol of authority. Calm yet commanding, she took her seat and cast a deliberate glance toward the defendants. Officer Carter's face drained of color. His eyes widened in disbelief. Daniel shifted, jaw clenched, visibly struggling with the reality before him. It was the very woman they'd publicly humiliated at the park, now presiding over them. Camille paused, allowing the silence to permeate the room. Then, with measured clarity, she began. "This court is now in session. Please be seated." Carter whispered urgently to his lawyer, who nodded, but kept an intense focus on Camille. For the first time in weeks, Camille sensed the upper hand, but her role demanded impartiality, not revenge. As opening arguments unfolded, Camille maintained her composure, jotting notes while her eyes occasionally darted to the officers. She noticed their rising tension, the subtle fidgeting, the tightening of shoulders. During a recess, Carter and Daniels huddled in the hallway, voices low and agitated. "How is she the judge?" Carter hissed, frustration barely contained. "This has to be a setup." Daniels shook his head. It's not a setup. Their attorney interjected firmly. No setup. Just coincidence. Stay focused. Despite reasoned counsel, the officers wrestled with the surreal situation. When court resumed, Camille's presence alone unsettled them. Every time she addressed them, their confidence faltered. She caught Carter stealing a glance. His expression was not defiant, but hesitant. Regret flickered across Carter's face. Not defiance, but dawning understanding of what they'd done. The courtroom was thick with tension as Camille adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. The room emptied, but the officers lingered at the threshold, weighing their next move. Ultimately, they slipped out quietly, their footsteps heavy with the truth. This fight was far from over. The next day, the courtroom brimmed with onlookers. News of Camille's unexpected role as judge had gone viral. Some came to witness history, others to show support, despite the strict impartiality her position demanded. Camille entered composed, her robe billowing as she took the bench. The prosecutor wasted no time. Your Honor, this was more than a lapse. It was an abuse of power, reflecting a disturbing pattern of disregard for those they swore to protect. Camille nodded, her pen racing as the officers visibly squirmed. The defense countered, measured, yet strained. Yes, there was an incident, but it escalated beyond the officers' control. No malicious intent, and insufficient grounds for punishment. Camille listened, hearing the echoes of her own ordeal in every excuse. She knew this script all too well, but personal feelings had to take a back seat. Facts were king tonight. When cross-exams kicked off, the room thickened with tension. The prosecutor called Ethan, a young man with a shaky voice who recalled the nightmare traffic stop. They didn't even let me speak, he said, eyes darting like prey trapped in a lion's den. They decided I was guilty before I said a word. Pressed harder, Ethan stood firm. Did I resist? Number I was scared, but obeyed every order. The courtroom fell dead silent. Then came defense. They tried to poke holes, but Ethan's story held tight. And then, the moment everyone dreaded, the defendants took the stand. Officer Carter stepped up first, nervously locking eyes with Camille. The prosecutor wasted no time. Excessive force allegations. Explain. Carter hesitated, glanced at Daniels, then admitted. I thought things were spiraling. I made a call. Asked if justified, he nodded, then backtracked. Maybe I could have handled it better. The question hung. How? Carter couldn't answer. Silence said it all. Next, Daniels stumbled through excuses, only digging the hole deeper. Camille's face was a stone mask, but inside, frustration and pity warred silently. Entrusted with authority, these officers wielded it recklessly, causing significant harm. Throughout the day, the evidence against them became overwhelming. The prosecutor's closing argument was forceful, urging the court to establish a precedent that abuse of power cannot be tolerated. The defense's closing lacked conviction, their arguments fragile, mirrored by the officers' resigned demeanor. Camille adjourned the hearing, announcing the ruling would come next week. As the courtroom emptied, Carter and Daniels lingered near the exit, their faces pale, visibly burdened by the seriousness of the consequences they faced. Justice, however, was not solely about punishment. It demanded accountability and change. 1 week later, the courtroom was filled to capacity, the tension palpable. Reporters prepared to document the ruling. Camille spoke clearly and firmly. The role of law enforcement is to protect the community with integrity and fairness. Abuse of that trust erodes public confidence and causes widespread harm. Her gaze swept the room. Carter and Daniels sat with bowed heads. The evidence demonstrated they employed unnecessary force, disregarding protocols. Their actions were unjustified and reflected a troubling pattern. Camille imposed mandatory suspension without pay, extensive retraining, and a formal disciplinary record. The judge's ruling was decisive yet nuanced, accountability coupled with an opportunity for reform. Camille's gavel dropped, sealing the case's fate. The officers stood, the weight of judgment heavy on their shoulders. Carter paused before leaving, voice barely a whisper. "Your Honor, I'm sorry." It was a hollow apology, but it marked a beginning. Camille acknowledged the gesture without mercy. She understood that true transformation would come from actions, not words. As the courtroom emptied, Camille sat alone, reflecting on the bittersweet nature of justice. For every resolved case, countless others remained shadows in the system. That evening, she attended a community meeting in a modest recreation center. The room buzzed with stories, pain, frustration, and cautious hope. Afterward, an older woman gripped Camille's hand, voice trembling with gratitude. "Thank you. What you did means everything." Camille smiled gently, aware that this was only the start. The case had ignited conversations, compelling community leaders, law enforcement, and activists to engage in meaningful dialogue. The ripple effect stretched beyond the city, sparking demands for systemic reform statewide. For Camille, the journey was never about personal vindication. It was a fight to ensure others wouldn't suffer the same fate. Standing on courthouse steps days later, watching young activists rally peacefully, she felt the flicker of progress. The system was flawed, but change, slow and steady, was possible. And that, she believed, was the justice worth striving for.